What happens when a peaceful morning walk in one of America's most iconic national parks turns into a life-or-death struggle? Imagine this. You're standing on the shores of Yellowstone Lake, the air crisp and cool, watching elk graze in the distance. Everything feels serene. But just moments later, you're being rushed by a 1,000-pound bison. A split-second decision, and your life hangs in the balance. Welcome back to Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, where we bring you some of the most intense, heart-pounding wildlife stories from across the globe. Today, we've got a tale that will make you think twice before wandering too close to nature's giants, even when you think you're playing it safe. In today's video, we'll take you deep into the story of Amber Harris, a woman whose dream vacation to Yellowstone National Park turned into a nightmare. Amber and her family thought they were enjoying a peaceful, picture-perfect morning by Yellowstone Lake. But in an instant, a 1,000-pound bison, one of the park's most iconic and dangerous animals, charged her, leaving her with life-threatening injuries, including 7 spinal fractures, and both lungs collapsed. How did she survive? What went wrong? And how did a shocking proposal unfold in the midst of this unimaginable tragedy? Stick around, because this is one of the most incredible stories of survival against one of nature's most unpredictable beasts, and you won't want to miss a second of it. But before we dive into Amber's harrowing encounter, take a moment to show some love to the channel. If you enjoy wild stories like this one, hit that like button, it really helps us out. Share this video with your friends and family, they'll be talking about it for days. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Savage Tales, Animal Encounters for even more thrilling stories from the untamed world of wildlife. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. We've got more wild encounters coming your way. Now, without further ado, get ready to experience the raw power of Yellowstone's wild bison as we explore Amber's terrifying ordeal. Welcome to Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, where nature doesn't just live, it thrives. And sometimes it bites back. It was a crisp, tranquil morning in Yellowstone National Park, the kind of day where everything felt serene and perfect. Amber Harris, her boyfriend, Chris Whitehill, and her daughter had just woken up to their first morning at the Lake Lodge cabins. Excited to explore the natural beauty surrounding them, they grabbed some coffee from the lodge and set off for a casual walk down to the shores of Yellowstone Lake. As they strolled through the open field, the landscape around them seemed calm. A small herd of elk grazed nearby, their majestic antlers visible against the backdrop of towering pine trees. The family waited for the elk to pass, staying respectful of the wildlife and ensuring a safe distance before continuing on their way. Everything seemed peaceful. As they ventured deeper into the field, something caught their attention. A pair of bison standing in the distance, almost statuesque in their massive size. Amber, Chris and her daughter noticed one of these bison about 50 yards away, hidden at first in the shadows beneath the trees. The family stopped, observing the enormous creature as it lazily dropped to the ground, rolling in the dirt much like a dog would. It seemed harmless, almost playful in its routine. But as the bison stood back up, there was a noticeable shift in its behavior. The calm, gentle rolling in the dirt turned into something far more alarming. The bison began to move, at first walking, then quickly picking up speed. The family was still standing at what they believed was a safe distance, over twice the recommended 25 yards. But in the blink of an eye, the massive animal went from a lumbering walk to a full, terrifying charge, its enormous body now thundering toward them. And then everything changed in an instant. In an instant, the calm serenity of Yellowstone's open field transformed into a scene of chaos and terror. The bison, once casually rolling in the dirt, suddenly became a force of nature. Its massive body, nearly 1,000 pounds of pure muscle and power, had locked onto Amber Harris and her family, and it was charging. Time seemed to slow as the enormous animal barreled toward them, the sound of its hooves pounding the ground like thunder, growing louder with each terrifying second. Amber's heart raced as she realized what was happening. Despite being more than 50 yards away, twice the recommended distance, the bison's speed was incomprehensible. What had been a distant, almost surreal moment of observing wildlife turned into a fight for survival in the blink of an eye. Amber, her boyfriend Chris, and her daughter stood frozen in disbelief, unable to process how quickly the bison had gone from a calm, dirt-rolling giant to a charging menace. Panic surged through them as the beast closed the gap between them in mere seconds. Its eyes, dark and wild, locked onto Amber, and there was no time to react, no way to run. She could see the thick, coarse fur rippling across its body as it thundered closer, its curved horns gleaming ominously in the morning light. The moment of impact was like being hit by a freight train. The bison's massive head and horns slammed into Amber with brutal force, lifting her off her feet and sending her crashing to the ground. The initial blow struck her in the chest and back, the sheer power of the animal's charge crushing her body like a ragdoll beneath its weight. Amber felt an explosion of pain ripple through her torso, her ribs cracking, lungs struggling to draw breath as they collapsed under the force. For a split second, she saw the ground rushing up to meet her, the wind knocked out of her as she hit the earth, but the attack wasn't over. The bison, relentless and enraged, continued its assault. Its horns dug into her body as it tossed her, brutalizing her back and ribs, leaving deep bruises and fractures in its wake. Amber's vision blurred, the pain so intense that it felt like her entire body was on fire. Each breath was a struggle, shallow and ragged, as the pressure in her chest grew unbearable. 7 of her vertebrae had been fractured, leaving her spine in a precarious state. She could feel the sharp, stabbing pain radiating down her back, each movement sending waves of agony through her body. And yet, despite the devastating injuries, Amber remained conscious, trapped in a state of shock and disbelief as the bison finally withdrew. In those agonizing moments, all Amber could think of was survival. The once beautiful landscape of Yellowstone, with its distant elk and tranquil lake, now felt like a battlefield. She lay on the ground, immobilized, struggling to breathe as her lungs failed to expand fully. The world around her had narrowed to the sharp, overwhelming pain and the desperate need to stay alive. The moment the bison withdrew, Amber Harris lay on the ground, her body shattered and in excruciating pain. Every breath felt like a battle as her lungs struggled to function. The severity of her injuries was immediately apparent. 7 fractured vertebrae and 2 collapsed lungs left her immobilized, fighting to stay conscious as shock set in. The tranquil field where she had once admired the beauty of Yellowstone was now a scene of devastation. Her boyfriend, Chris, and daughter were at her side in an instant, panicking yet desperately trying to help. They knew they had to act quickly. Without cell service in the remote part of the park, the situation was dire. Chris flagged down other park visitors, and soon park rangers were notified. Help was on the way, but every second felt like an eternity as Amber's breathing became more shallow and her body stiffened in response to the trauma. When the rescue team arrived, they knew Amber's injuries were severe. They carefully placed her on a stretcher, immobilizing her to prevent any further damage to her already fractured spine. The reality of her situation hit hard. Her body was broken and she was losing strength with each passing minute. Amber was transported by ambulance to a nearby area where a life flight helicopter was waiting. The whir of the blades sliced through the air as she was lifted off the ground, the landscape of Yellowstone fading below her. The destination was Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center, roughly 100 miles away. It was there in the intensive care unit that Amber's true road to recovery began. Doctors immediately assessed her injuries. Though brutal, the damage to her vital organs had miraculously been avoided. Her lungs had collapsed from the sheer force of the bison's impact, and her spine was badly fractured, but somehow surgery wasn't necessary. Instead, she would be outfitted with a back brace to stabilize her spine, and her lungs would need time to recover on their own. The emotional toll was just as severe. Amber faced not only physical pain, but the realization of how close she had come to death. But amidst the chaos, there was an unexpected moment of joy. Her boyfriend, Chris, who had planned a proposal at Yellowstone's Natural Bridge, couldn't wait any longer. Beside her hospital bed, he knelt down and asked her to marry him, reminding Amber that love and hope still existed despite the trauma. With no hesitation, Amber said yes. Her fight was far from over. The long, grueling process of healing began immediately. She wore an immobilizing back brace, endured painful physical therapy, and struggled with the emotional scars of the attack. But day by day, with Chris by her side, Amber made small but significant progress. She was, and still is, a fighter. Her story quickly spread, with well-wishers reaching out and even donating through a GoFundMe page set up to help with medical expenses. The Yellowstone community and beyond rallied behind her, supporting her recovery and offering words of encouragement. Amber's journey, though marked by pain and trauma, also became one of resilience, survival, and hope. She was determined not to let this savage encounter define her future. Instead, it became a testament to her strength and a reminder of the unpredictable power of nature. What a terrifying encounter! Amber Harris went from enjoying a peaceful morning walk in the heart of Yellowstone to fighting for her life in a matter of seconds. 7 spinal fractures, 2 collapsed lungs, and a brutal goring. It's a miracle she survived that vicious bison attack. And yet, in the midst of all that trauma, there was a beautiful moment of hope when her boyfriend proposed to her beside her hospital bed. It's a stark reminder that nature, while stunning and awe-inspiring, is also unpredictable and often dangerous. Amber's story is a powerful example of why it's so important to stay vigilant around wildlife, even when you think you're keeping a safe distance. Before we go, let's recap what we've learned today. Amber and her family thought they were at a safe distance, 50 yards, twice the recommended gap, but the bison's aggression during mating season changed everything in an instant. The sheer force of the attack left her with life-altering injuries, but through her resilience, she's slowly recovering, step by step, fighting every day to regain her health. If you were as captivated by this story as we were, don't forget to show your support. Hit that like button to let us know you enjoyed the content. Share Amber's incredible survival story with your friends and family. It's a real eye-opener for anyone planning to visit a national park or come close to wildlife. Leave a comment below and tell us, what would you do in a situation like this? Or share any close calls you've had with wildlife. We'd love to hear your stories. And of course, if you want to hear more gripping stories from the wild, make sure to subscribe to Savage Tales Animal Encounters. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss one of our heart-pounding episodes. We've got more incredible wildlife encounters and survival stories coming your way. Thanks so much for watching and for being a part of this amazing community. At Savage Tales Animal Encounters, we bring you closer to the wild, where nature thrives and sometimes it bites back. Stay safe out there.